Hello, everyone. Welcome to Catalyst Energies. My name is Dee. Thank you for joining me. I am so grateful that you are here. Hello, Taurus. Welcome to your new moon astrology forecast. Not only is this new moon in your sign, Taurus, it's also the beginning of the next eclipse cycle. So it is a new moon partial solar eclipse. It's not a total solar eclipse. There's still the ring of fire with this eclipse, but it is, in fact, in your sign. Not only that, but it's an activation for Andromedan starseeds as well. So the new moon is going to be 10 to 11 degrees of Taurus, and we'll get into all the astrology to look forward to between now. Certainly our full moon that will be in Scorpio, right? So Taurus, this is going to be an important time for you still. The last eclipse cycle, had a full moon lunar eclipse where Taurus was the eclipsed moon. Now it's about to shift positions, and the sun will be in Taurus. It'll be the lens in which the shadow is cast over the moon for the full moon lunar eclipse in Scorpio, but it will be in your sign, Taurus. And so what I suspect for many of us, not to get ahead of myself because there's a whole more content, there is more focus towards the eclipse cycle in general that I'm going to share with you in a minute. But we always, we have to accept that part of the eclipse cycle is distortion, right? And normally a new moon in Taurus, right, really setting the stage for cultivation and fertilization and a sense of stability and a sense of fertility and open heart, and especially as the sun starts to cross these starseed positions, especially Andromeda, right, to be authentically yourself at any given moment and to be in alignment with the natural rhythm of the universe to evolve along with it. So, but with the eclipse, we know that this is a cycle that is not going to be contained within just the lunar progression, the lunar cycle, but is going to be elongated over the course of the next 6 months. So as we go through just this next 2 weeks leading up to the full moon in Scorpio, Taurus, just know that there's a lot changing for you in your life and in terms of who you are, very much so. There is a lot of, there's going to be a Sun-Uranus conjunction in Taurus. The sun is going to also cross the Pleiades, meet the moon's north node. This is all happening in your sign, Taurus. So lots of evolution, lots of very maybe swift and dramatic awakenings into who you are. Perhaps some real adversity that is going to test truly your character and how you identify yourself. And it's going to be important for all of us, but certainly you and Scorpio, because of the axis of this new moon cycle and the fact that it's eclipsed, is in the very houses that have to do with your identity, like who you actually are. So there's real challenge that has been building and coming your way around this, Taurus. And we'll just look at this little window here between the new moon and the full moon in a little bit more detail. But overall, there's going to be a lot of, I think awakening and wanting to be free in who you are that's going to transpire over the next couple of weeks, especially with the sun meeting Uranus. So we'll look at all those transits. You can get the dates. We'll look at all the other connections. But one thing I do want to share with you around this actually is some promotional material. So there will be a report and content that has to do specifically with the eclipse cycle. And Taurus, since this is really in your sign in particular, the next 6 months really having an impact on what you're cultivating in terms of your own self and identity, I would recommend this if you're in a position or you've been waiting to get some type of reading. So cultivation is the theme here. It's the eclipse season forecast from May to November, from throughout the summer summer into the fall of 2022. And so for $99, it's a 90-minute recording. It's very difficult to truncate that any smaller to get the full scope of what's happening. So I'm not offering anything along the eclipse readings in smaller increments. But what I do have is a sale right now also on these lunar transit readings that I do. So it's just looking at the lunar cycle and offering a 30-minute option, which I hardly ever do as well. But I think that, in order to give people just a basic understanding of how this month may impact them directly, I think is very valuable right now. So both of these, you can just go to catalystenergies.net. That's in the description box below. The means to book these are on the homepage for you if you're interested. Okay, so Taurus, let's look at the chart because that's why we are here, and we want to get through as much of this as we possibly can in the next few minutes here. So this is for Taurus rising, Taurus moon, and Taurus sun, specifically in that order, if you can, if that makes sense to you. So as you can see here, Taurus, all of this energy here in your first house, the moon and the sun come together in that conjunction at the new moon. But the proximity to the nodal axis of the moon, right, which is basically where the path of the moon's orbit crosses the ecliptic plane, or the path of the sun or the Earth's orbit, right? This is where the eclipses come in, because we're on the same plane at that point, and the moon is not only in the same longitude in terms of coordinates, but it's also on the same plane, right? It's parallel, and so there's the blockage. So eclipses happen twice a year, every year, but they are distortions of what otherwise would be fully manifested in terms of a lunar cycle after just a couple of weeks. And so that'll also be the case for the full moon as well in your 7th house. Taurus, really what's happening now is, and has been leading up to this point, but when it comes to the eclipses and the moon cycle in general, and the intention that is being set, is that you, in fact, are growing as the seed point. And how you cultivate that, the patience that you exert in that area, or just the strong sense of self and boundaries in this area, is going to be really important, because when we get to the full moon on the 16th, it will become you'll become very identified with the aspects that truly just need to be adjusted, released in a more dramatic fashion, to be separated, the head separated from the body, much like when Perseus cut the head off of Medusa, because that in fact is the fixed star that the sun will be at for the full moon lunar eclipse, as we're going to look at. So how you adjust emotionally to your relationships when these big changes happen is going to be not as obvious right away. We will feel something. It will be intense because it's Scorpio. It has to do with your relationships of the 7th house, but it may not be nearly as obvious about how you emotionally adjust to the changes in the territory. The thing that'll be more clear is that there are changes in the territory of your own identity. And when the sun and Uranus come together on the 5th, 5 by 5, right? May 5th, when the sun and Uranus come together, 14 to 15 degrees of Taurus, another Andromedan constellation and Andromedan starseed activation, we are, the character for the Taurus people under some sort of adversity is going to be really, really tested and brought forward. So a sun and Uranus together in general is there's a lot of rebellion and like a real strong need for freedom. And with the Andromedans, truly, their existence and their life and their beingness is to be in alignment with the natural rhythm of the universe and to flow and grow along with it. So not being manipulated, not being impeded, and never feeling separated from source other than in the physical experience, recognizing that. But there's still going to be these the storm is still, something that we are having to kind of face up to whatever that is. And for the Taurus person, it's most assuredly in your own identity, and who you are, how you identify yourself, the person that you present to the world, your persona, your first house, your sign. So there could be a rebellion. There could be a strong flashpoint that inspires one to be free in some way. But I also suspect that this can be a moment where very rash and hasty actions can be brought forward as a result of wanting to be free and not being able to really hold it together, right? As the adversity that challenged your sense of identity in the first place just kind of get amplified. So that's one really big transit that's going to be happening. So we also want to look at what's happening over here with Venus, with Neptune. She just came in. She's coming into a conjunction with Neptune today. When I'm recording this, it is April 27th. Venus is going to also meet Jupiter at the time of this new moon partial solar eclipse. And this is really important because the 28-degree mark of Pisces is truly abundance, right? And not abundance necessarily for everyone, but an abundance that's tailored to fit the individual need. The soul has everything that it needs in order to journey into the next stage of growth, whatever that means, the next incarnation, the next seed point of creation, through creative pursuits, through an actual life, through the crossing of the veil into formlessness, right? In order to incarnate back into another experience, whatever it is. And know that this 12th house for you, honestly, has been a huge sticking point. And we'll get to that because Venus as your chart ruler, Venus is your planetary representative. We definitely want to follow what Venus is up to for you, Taurus. Meeting Neptune, meeting Jupiter. So while the eclipsed sun, right, the new moon is eclipsing the sun for us at 10 to 11 degrees of Taurus, which is about cultivation, right? The woman watering the flowers in her garden, knowing that it is in fact an eclipse portal and represents an elongated tunnel of time. We know that there may be along the way frustration and even doubt about what we are attempting to cultivate because they might not sprout right away. And so if you are into gardening at all, then you know that this is actually eclipse or not, that there are some varieties of plants that take longer to germinate than others. That doesn't mean you stop watering them or that you get upset that you did something wrong. It's a process that is going to take time to unfold. It's Venus and Jupiter. This is such a beautiful, when these two come together, it is really resource expansion to the max. And in Pisces, suggesting that the soul has everything that it needs in this moment. In your 11th house, this is really just remember that there is everything you need in the social environment as a whole, right? Your town, your community, your neighborhood, your social networks, your social media networks, your organizations, right? Your associates, your friends, right? The 11th house is the social container as a whole that you find yourself in. Everything is there for you, for your individual need. And so to remember that conjunction, to embody it, to allow the expansion from Jupiter to be part of the process, because it's going to be something you want to come back to in your own memory or a feeling, right? To reconnect with that feeling of abundance when you are questioning whether you did something right or wrong because of the cultivation aspect taking longer, right? Needing more care, needing extra time, right? It's just the thing about time, right? Things unfold on their timeline, and our egos don't really like that. And speaking of ego, as things move into Aries for you, Taurus, and the sign of the ego is very much embedded in the unseen for you, and the spark of life, there's going to be a lot more focus here. So let's start to kind of move through at least up until the full moon in Scorpio, just even and just a bit beyond the 18th, the 19th, and even the 20th, because that's when the sun enters Gemini. It's conjunct Alcyon, and right from there is in a conjunction with the retrograde Mercury. So a Mercury Cazimi at 0 degrees Gemini, on the 20th. So we talked about the sun and moon, the eclipse, and Venus moves into Aries after this, right? So, let's start doing this. Hold on a second. The thing about you being first Taurus is that you are, you're kind of like the warm up. It's not until I get about hours into these recording sessions that I'm finally on some sort of rhythm of how I'm going to do this, right? So just bear with me, Taurus, as I attempt to set everything up for your maximum efficiency. So one thing that we see here now is that Venus will have entered, Venus will have entered Aries from Pisces. So it meets Neptune, it meets Jupiter on the day of the eclipse, and then soon comes into Aries into the 12th house. So the sense of value and worth in terms of the social organism to society, humanity as a whole, is been very watery, been very just beautiful and loving and compassionate, and a sense of real compassion for those that are in your life and you have relationships with. And as she moves into the 12th house, that meaning, it has not gone away, but it is now in the unseen realms. It is in the realms of the endings of things, right? The realms of isolation, where we have to truly return in order to return back to the source. So it's much more of an internalized experience, but yet she becomes way more hot and impulsive in this area. And it's when she meets Chiron later in the month that another Andromedan activation and the ability to really fulfill our desires, all our hopes and dreams, right? To be able to weave the ceremonial blanket that we then wrap ourselves in, that represents us being able to actually materialize our desires and our, what we want to be and who we want to be. So, man, that's coming back around to you, Taurus. The thing is that there's so much change, there's so much activation, there's so much focus on and the soul's journey in area of who you are right now, to ignore what is unseen, what is really below the surface of a lot of who you are and who you have been, right? The 12th house and how you're connected to everything else. This is going to be where a lot of the work starts to happen for you, is in the unseen realms, which is going to be, I think, probably really annoying to Taurus people in general, because of the tendency and the propensity to really rely upon and identify with the material world. And so identifying with the immaterial, in the formless, in the shapeless, in the timeless, right? The realm of the unseen is going to be a little bit more difficult. But here's Venus, your planetary representative, in this area now. So it's going, hot and bothered Venus is in Aries, but she also knows what she wants, and she's really just acting on getting it. And so it can be, that Princess of Wands character in the tarot, right? So leading up to this point, though, we have, like I said, 5 by 5. This is where the sun meets Uranus, and we have the courage. We truly are going to identify the courage that is actually needed in order to overcome some sort of adversity, right? That's part of the social ambition. Like, if you want to attain something, if you want to gather something, if you just want something, and that's part of being in material form, is to have a relationship with the materium and to have a relationship with what is around you, has value, has worth, and identify for yourself what is valuable and worthy. It's But part of that process is that there is a crisis that is usually precipitated by this social ambition, whatever it is. And it's not to put a judgment on it or to say that we shouldn't have it. Remember that Siddhartha, or the Buddha, the original Buddha, is considered a Taurus. And so there's something here about accepting the process, right, of the oscillation, the wavelength, the fact that there is a space and there is a filling of the space, right? But without the space, there is no filling of the space. So, my friends, do I have it on? Yes, I do. I do have it. There it is. So you see that the sun meets Uranus. This is on the 5th of May. And the next big transit really after this is the first quarter square. And so the first quarter square is that crisis in action. What are we going to do? The thing is that our new moon was a distortion because of a partial solar eclipse. So by the time we get there, it's we're going to have a crisis in action of what to do, but it's not going to be really clear, at least with the timeline maybe of how things are going to cultivate, or how we will cultivate them and how they will grow. So we'll get there. I want to point out a couple of things that are happening in this arena here, that Jupiter is in a sextile to Pluto, and you can also see that Mercury has now moved into Gemini, right? Mercury has passed its point in the Pleiades, is moving into Gemini, but is going to station retrograde during this time in Gemini and come back into your sign, Taurus. So there's also a sense here that you're really ready to start thinking about, what's around you, using your mental energy, especially in Gemini, right? To, as a resource, or how to conceptualize resources, or to problem solve about resources in the world around you, and to really start allowing your consciousness to engage with the world around you. But it's the retrograde, I feel, that is going to pull you back into yourself again. There's more perspective and mature understanding that is going to come about. And this has a lot to do with Pluto, because Pluto is in the area of your belief system and the larger pattern of meaning that you are part of. And it would, every time something crosses the Pleiades in this area right now and is entwined to Pluto, it is offering perspective, mature perspective, that is, in some ways completely stabilized by what, strangely enough, it seems completely counterintuitive, by what Pluto is destroying, essentially, or unearthing, or composting, or eliminating, right? Now, at this point, Pluto is retrograde. So there is, there is a thoroughness to Pluto going back over these points again. And so there's more here for you, Taurus, about who you are, and to allow the cycles to do what they're naturally doing. And you may be pulled back into addressing aspects about yourself, your identity, your persona that you project into the world, because it won't be obvious with the full moon in your 7th house necessarily. It'll be eclipsed about how to emotionally and very swiftly adjust to new territory. What it'll seem like, though, is that there's new territory in who you are, and what are you doing about it? Well, so as we move forward, and the reason I bring up Pluto, Jupiter is in a sextile at the end of Pisces. Venus was in a sextile at the end of Pisces, right? This is that prism, right? That when the light goes through the prism, there is equal amount of representation, right? Even though they're all different colors, which means they're all different frequencies of light, but it's all the same spectrum. It's all light. It's all photonic light, but it's moving in a variety of frequencies that designate themselves through color. And it's kind of an illusion in some ways when you look at it, thinking that these are all very much different, but we all come from the same source. And there's something something about the destruction of belief systems and value systems that you had been, aligned with, Taurus, at one point, that is going through such massive change through destruction and elimination and space. It's creating space in order for this new creation to come forward in this area that is, completely linked, obviously, to who you are with the trines to all of the Taurus energy. But it's when you realize at a social level that everybody's got their part to play and we all come from the same source, and then you have the mind, especially the higher mind with Jupiter and understanding, and with Venus too, crossing this point before moving into Aries, right? When it's conjunct with Jupiter, and then right after that reaches that point where it's sextile to Pluto, 60-degree angle, there is a way to make something more out of this process. It's not just the destruction and now the real elimination, but it's also, influencing and capitalizing in some ways off of this perspective that we hold in our understanding and in our own embodiment of like, wow, we all come from the same source, but we're all vibrating at different frequencies, which means we're different colors. And when we recognize that, the differentiation, the diversity in those frequencies is what makes up this beautiful rainbow. So there's something there that I think Taurus in particular with the larger social setting, can benefit from kind of coming to understanding about. And that's part of, again, the perspective on who you are, right, is completely connected in with where Pluto is. And like I said, every time the sun and the 3 times that Mercury is going to pass in a trine to Pluto, it's giving the mental perspective and the capacity to have a much more rational and logical approach to who you are and how that is related to the destruction of the establishment when it comes to belief systems, right? I mean, this is not easy work, Taurus. You guys, wow. I love me my Taurus. Got a lot of good Taurus people in my life. My IC is Taurus. It's in conjunction to the Pleiades. So, this is the Pleiades. This is the Pleiadian starseeds right here, especially these later degrees. So, and Andromeda too, like 0, 6 degrees, 10 degrees, 14 degrees Taurus, all Andromedan activations as well. So very closely related to us. So when we move to the first quarter square real quick, because I know we're just about out of time, my friends, this is where that crisis in action is going to come up. And this is about the time we're going to be having our Starseed fellowship. So we have time to really kind of consider this and consider how we're going to move, what we're going to do about this. So the moon will be in, Leo, the sun's still in Taurus, the moon in Leo, 18 to 19 degrees. And here we go. There it is. So here's the square. It's a fixed square, right? And again, crisis in action. So 19 degrees Leo is kind of cool. It's like people on a houseboat having a party, right? It's the sense that like all of the pretense is getting dropped and people are just themselves coming to a space where everybody can congregate and relax. But there's a sense of fun, right? Leo is a lot about fun and joy and optimism and passion. And so we're feeling like I just want to, come together and have this party, right? And houseboat really does symbolically represent being on the water, above the unconscious, right? Connected to it, but not completely within it, right? And this is our feeling with the moon in Leo. So the square to the sun, while the new continent that is rising out of the ocean of the unconscious is going to put a real damper on this houseboat party, right? Because if you've ever been out to sea, then you know that or anything, right? Big waves, and what is going to cause a bigger wave than seismic activity, the rising of a landmass, for instance, right? It's going to capsize our boat. It's going to capsize our consciousness, right? And this may, for you, Taurus, this is the rising rising of a new identity that is coming out of the collective unconscious for you, and is really going to upset who the houseboat of home, right? Home and inner security and family, private life. So this goes, home and family of origin and your traditions and customs associated with it. Your home as a child, right? And your caregivers, your parents, your siblings, but mostly your parents and the love of the house, your marriage. So that relationship, your country, your tribe, your clan, any of these types of communities that are families, right? Tight-knit families. This is the fourth house. And whew, boy, it's going to you're going to feel it, and you're going to feel like, well, you're going to do what you need to do to kind of not so much adjust yourself, but maybe try to shine a lot brighter in these areas of it's going to be cool. Let's just hang out. It's let's find joy. Let's find fun in this area. You're going to emotionally be seeking it, I think, and sensitive to it. But the strong force of the sun here in Taurus is just no, there is something spontaneously rising out of the ocean. So that's something to consider. Wow, that's going to be incredible. So, there'll be lots of time and lots of transmissions that are going to be along for the ride in this time frame. And we look at, let's see here. Let's go out to the week of the full moon lunar eclipse, as we talked about. So we already mentioned how the moon in your seventh house, right? It's about how do you swiftly make adjustments in new territory or set up new camp as you have to migrate. Well, this is about your relationships. As something new is rising out of the unconscious of you. There will be adjustments. And what's interesting about this is the sun in conjunction with Algol. I suspect, Taurus, you will be very very brightly identified with what needs to go, right? What you are ready to release back to, and how to ritualize your desires, to role play, and I'm not talking literally, I'm talking about you do what you need to do in order to act out this process of releasing whatever it is that needs to go. And how you adjust yourself in the face of your relationships is really going to be the big struggle as this moon is eclipsed. You also see that Jupiter has now moved into Aries as well. Venus by this point, where is she? Venus at this point is conjunct. Oh yeah, she's directly conjunct Chiron at this full moon lunar eclipse, which is, another Andromedan activation, and is about, our ability to wrap ourselves up in our own desire, right? That we can actually create that which we want for ourselves. We can actually fulfill the desire of ourselves and our identity. And Venus is there as a salve, right? Venus is there to be yo, let's get it going, right? Venus, now, again, with Chiron involved, it really depends. Are you going to stay in your old self and just be reiterating the victim narrative? Then, yeah, Venus is going to be oh, I guess they won't really, let's make a hasty decision or, really get emotionally charged or angry, right? About something. Here is Venus, or that Princess of Wands, where she is just not caring about anything that she does, right? She is just full on in her Carmen mode and just burning everything down. This can be the case here. And this is in the 12th house for you, Taurus. So this is something that is in the unseen realms, in the realms of the endings and the soul realm, right? In the realm of the spirit, the realm of the collective unconscious as well. If you are still feeling guilty about this capacity within yourself at a karmic level or at a soul level, or even at, in the astral, in your Akash, right? This is multi-dimensional here. If you're struggling with this, Venus is going to make it even more of a struggle, like right brought to your doorstep, or it's going to give you kind of like the maternal, but also very playful and joyous and charismatic sense of like, yeah, let's do this. Like we can actually be who we want to be. But it's for Taurus, it's going to be in the realm of the unseen. This is like a lot of work that can be done shamanically or energetically, right? There's a number of modalities that address this, okay? But now Jupiter is here as well. And remember, Venus is your ruling planet, so this is really important at this moment, because there's going to be a lot of like confusion or a lot of really strong identification with, chopping the head off from the body, and being very clear about why or how you're identifying with that, why you're identifying that, and what that's doing in terms of your karmic and your soul work is going to be something to pay attention to, okay? So, like I said, this is the full moon lunar eclipse at this time, and beyond that, the Mars is going to conjunct Neptune, where Venus is conjunct Neptune already, Jupiter is going to conjunct Neptune, and then Mars, right? This is still the catharsis that is initiated by the soul. And this, again, this is all in your 11th house of society or your larger social network. So just also remember that that's, the purging is happening at these much larger networks, and to see it for what it is, right? But Jupiter now is in Aries and is going to really, this is that leadership role that is great in theory, right? Or is acting, expanding, understanding, but there has to be some momentum with Aries, and Jupiter's not really great with that at all, right? Because Jupiter wants to expand. Jupiter doesn't want to focus. And so I think when Mars and Jupiter come into conjunction at the end of this month, that'll be a point of focus. But in the meantime, just keep in mind that there's a lot of talk and a lot of big ideas. The sun's going to trine Pluto, right? There's that perspective again, as the sun is in conjunction with the Pleiades, and then the sun enters Gemini, is going to conjunct a Mercury retrograde, 0 degrees Gemini. This is the glass bottom boat. So I suspect here at this moment of Alcyon, wow, especially if you have connections to Alcyon in your chart, or Pleiades in general, oh boy, I mean, this is going to be like the lens turned inward of your soul, your infinite soul, your infinite connection to everything else. It's going to be pretty remarkable, actually. But it's going to be an interesting month in even just these 2 weeks to get through for Taurus. So keep your chin up, right? I mean, the thing about Taurus is that you are so stable and strong, but you have to also, you don't want to resist what is, providing dissonance. You want to be in communion with what is and flow with it. And there's a lot of the Pisces energy in your 11th house that's actually assisting, because it's in a natural sextile to Taurus. So, wow, Taurus, lucky you. You get a nice big chunk of personal forecast. So I'm going to leave it there for you guys. Thank you so much for being here. I truly appreciate each and every one of you. Anything you need is in the description box below in terms of readings, in terms of social media, website, email, all of that stuff. So please take care of yourself. Taurus, I'll see you on the next forecast. I love you. Bye.